Hello folks, today I want to show you some essential products you should have in stock to take care of your tortoise and iguana collection. Um, if you have an animal that is debilitated and you want to tube feed him or you want to feed him, this is critical care. This stuff is great stuff for bringing those animals back. It's formulated for tortoises and iguanas, so it's a great product. Also, something special about a lot of people don't know when you're dealing with critical care is you should get the fine grind. If you're going to have small tubes, it's hard to get that critical care through the thicker tube. So they make a fine grind, which is really important. Some of the other things that are essential, if you're tube feeding, you want to bring back an animal that is under the weather. You know, we have these little types of tubes depending on the size tortoise. Some of you folks are out there and you're dealing with little baby leopards and little baby spurs. This product is essential for being able to get food into those animals that really need it. Something else that you can use in some of your iguanas is you have this little syringe with that little bent tube, so you can mix up some of your critical care and you can feed them by mouth. And that's some of the ways that you can get some nourishment into those animals. And then just having on hand a different array of different types of sizes of syringes. That's a 1 ml, this is a 3 ml, this is a 5 ml syringe. They're important if you're going to deal with different size animals and being able to tube feed those different size animals. So you need on hand different instruments to be able to do that. Something else that we use here is these large 60 ml syringes. Again, if you have bigger animals. And then there are feeding tubes. These are rubber flexible feeding tubes. They start off very small. They can get very large. And this you just get that tortoise's mouth open and you slide that feeding tube down. Talking about getting those tortoises' mouth open. These are a couple of tools that I've invented years ago. These are for opening up tortoises' mouths. You may have seen them in some of my other videos. Camp Kennan uses it a lot. And really what it is, it's a butter knife. And that butter knife I've just ground down, obviously the short edge, and I made it smaller. And then I just have a little lip in there. That little lip helps you get underneath that jaw and open it up. So I've made two different sizes. And those are really easy to use. Something that will help you be able to tube feed those tortoises. Okay, so let's see. Anybody know what that is? That's a piece of hose. Why would we use a piece of hose? Piece of hose is used in some of the larger iguanas, like the big cyclora. What I do is I put this tube, depending on the size of the animal, I have different size tubes. What it is I do is I put this tube in their mouth first. So when they bite down on it, then I can put my tube through that hose. That way they're not cutting off or biting through this rubber feeding tube. They're actually biting down on that hose. Again, different sizes. They don't break their teeth. A lot of times if you try to do it with something else, you're holding their mouth open, you can hear their teeth cracking. So nice hard rubber tube. That's a garden hose, but there are different size hoses you can use. So again, feeding tube, check this one out. This is one that we use on the larger tortoises, the Burmese tortoises, the redfoot, the yellowfoot tortoises, sulcata tortoises. What's neat about this tube is we have a technique, I'll make another video, where we let's say we're feeding them panicure. And while we're feeding them, we're down on the ground. We haven't taken them out of their environment. They're not on a counter or a tabletop somewhere. They're actually on the ground. We put some food down on the ground, and then we just kind of sneak up when they open up their mouth, and that slides right down. And within a matter of 5 seconds, you can be giving your tortoises or your iguanas medication. Typically, a lot of people use panicure, so it's great for delivering panicure. Another important thing to have on is a Mortise and Pestle, which is for grinding up pills. A lot of times somebody will give you a pill, you try to give an animal a pill or a vitamin, whatever it is you want to give them, and you find that that pill is gigantic and it's much too big of a dose for the animal that you have. So we grind that up into a powder. And then what do you do when you have it as a powder? Well, here's the thing. What we do is we put it in a suspension like this. So let's say, for instance, you have a 100 milligram pill and you want to give 10 milligrams. That's a tenth of a pill. How the heck do I give the animal a tenth of a pill? Well, here's the way you give it a tenth of a pill. You take 10 mLs of fluid, 10 mLs of your suspension vehicle, and you mix it up with the powder that we've created. You mix it up real good. Okay, so now we create a solution, 10 mLs, and you have a 100 milligram pill diluted in that 10 mLs. And you want to give that animal a tenth of a pill, so you would give him a 1 ml dose of that solution. Then you mark it and you store it in a bottle like this of medication. You get one of those tapes, then you put it on there and you say like 10 milligrams of Flagyl or something like that. And then where you have it, and you got to always remember when you're diluting pills in suspension, every time you got to shake. So put shake well on your bottles as well. Let's see, moving right along, calcium. This is a great calcium. I've used it on these baby tortoises and stuff like that. So you might want to mix that in a little bit with some of your feeding. Tweezers, obviously something good to have on hand. Something else. These are little cups, and these are just a little craft stick is what they call them. But sometimes you have a sample of something, you want to save that sample, stool sample, whatever. Grab your craft sticks, you grab your little cups, and you mark it, you collect your stool sample. That way you're ready. You have all of your products in stock, and you're ready to bring that sample to the vet as soon as you can. So it pays to have this stuff in stock. Okay, something else we use here is marking pens. A lot of you folks see my animals white. I have a white marker and I use a black marker. The white marker stays on real nice. A lot of you folks don't like it because when you try to get it off the tortoises, you really got to know what you're doing to get it off. But what I like to do when I have an animal that is sick, first thing I do is take its weight. That's why it's important to have a scale. You got to have a scale. You got to know how much that animal weighed when you started. You should have records anyway of how that tortoise has been coming along, and that's what triggers you into if they have a disease or they don't have a disease. So get your scale. Make sure you have. I have a couple different scales. Make sure you get a couple different scales depending on the animals that you're thinking about weighing, and mark them. Mark them their starting grams, 680 grams. I want to know if I'm going backwards or forwards. So marking pens. Get a scale. Okay, moving right along. A lot of times people, with tortoises especially, they don't get a good look in the mouth. Sometimes you got to get a look in the mouth of these tortoises. That tells you the picture. A lot of them could have stomatitis. A lot of them have these fungal infections that they get in their mouth. There's all kind of white crud and everything. So I'll see people come in with tortoises, don't know why it's sick. You open up its mouth, it's a disaster in there. They've never looked inside the mouth. Again, what you do is you get inside that mouth with your tool and you look inside there with a flashlight so that you know what you're seeing. Then you can use a toothbrush to clean that mouth rot out. And a real good product to use for cleaning out mouth rot, Chlorhexidine. You get your Chlorhexidine solution, you dilute it properly, and Chlorhexidine is also used in mouthwash in people. So if you go to the dentist and you have bad teeth or something like that, you can use Chlorhexidine to rinse your own mouth out. So in these iguanas and everything, you get that Chlorhexidine, you get your little toothbrush, and you brush that stuff, that gunk that's out of their mouth. That's important. So let's see. Moving right along here, heat gun. When you're going to take these animals, you're going to want to know when you put them up, if they're sick, what temperature you've taken them. Maybe they're outside. You're going to take them from the garage. You're going to watch them. And you want to know when you set them up in that new cage what their shell temperature is. Don't worry about the ambient temperature. Don't worry about the temperature of the bulb. I want to know the shell temperature. The shell temperature, when I talk about temperatures in my care sheets and everything, I talk about between 86 and 92 degrees, talking about shell temperature. So important to actually measure the temperature of the tortoises. Okay, wound care. Here we go. Wound care. Silvadine, great stuff. This is that Silvadine cream, great for wound care. Also, this is something we use, which is a wound coat. This is a blue spray. It's almost like it has an ink base. It doesn't come off or anything. So it'll actually like stain the skin or stain your clothes or stain your fingers for a while. But that means it's on the surface. It's staying on the surface. So wound coat, I have seen do amazing stuff. They use this product a lot in South America. Sometimes I've seen where the cows rub up against the barbed wire fence and there's maggots and everything piling out of that wound. Guess what they use? Wound care. So get ready if you have animals that have some sort of an injury. You've got to be able to clean that injury out And the things that we use to clean that injury out, Betadine. Get Betadine in stock. Keep it in stock. Something else we use, hydrogen peroxide. Get hydrogen peroxide, keep it in stock. That's how you're going to treat those wounds. You're ready to go. Something happens. You can clean the wound out. You can dress the wound so that it doesn't get worse. Some of the things that I use is, this is like a roll of gauze. That's just a roll of gauze. And the other thing that's really good, especially in iguanas, is this sports tape. I don't know if a lot of people have used this or not, but this stuff is great. You can wrap this stuff up, around a limb or something like that, and then you just squeeze it together, and it just holds on like a bandage, and it breathes. Those wounds have to breathe. So sports wrap, you can find it on Amazon. Works great. It's important. Okay, speaking about tortoises, we're going to move along. A lot of folks are dealing with shell rot or scud, or what you'll see on the plastron. It usually starts that white fungus. That's a fungus that's eating into their shell. And that fungus is created from areas that are too damp and they're too dark. And that's why you see a lot of times on the plastron. And the way to get that stuff off is bristle brush, hard bristle brush. And we use Scarlet Oil. I've talked about it in a lot of my videos. You can find it on Amazon, Scarlet Oil. It's an antifungal, it's an antibacterial, it's a great product. It leaves a nice shine. You see it on our tortoises. You see how nice the shells of our tortoises are. That's the product, is Scarlet Oil. And that's how you can treat that preliminary effect that you're getting from that scud invading the shell and starting eating into the shell and then causing shell rot. Beyond the bristle brush, sometimes, believe it or not, you got to use a soft wire brush. You just can't get all of that white scud off of their shells with a regular brush. It just doesn't work. You've got to use this wire brush. Then I have a lot of folks ask, well, aren't I, taking away some of the shell? What you're doing is you're removing that scud. And even if it bleeds a little bit, guess what? That scud is right down there. It's chewed down and invaded the shell, and that's what's happening. The shell is actually bleeding. So a lot of times when you scrape that scud off, you may see a little bit of bleeding. You don't have to complete this procedure all at once. You can take a couple of days, a couple of weeks or whatever, several treatments, treating that scud. That's how you get rid of that fungus. You brush it off, you wire it off, and you use Scarlet Oil. That will solve your scud problem. Something else that you keep on hand is, a lot of people have problems with eyes. I see people send me pictures of tortoises' eyes. They look infected and everything. You don't need a prescription. You can order it on Chewy. This is some of the common eye antibiotic that we use on the tortoises. And it's great. Put it in both eyes. You're always going to use an ointment. You're not going to use drops. Drops don't stay in tortoises' eyes. Use your eye ointment when you have those little irritations and stuff like that. Something's happened to the tortoise's eye. That's important. It's a great product. Okay, moving right along. Duct tape. One of the tortoises tearing a fence down. Duct tape. Why in the world would somebody think you would use duct tape for a tortoise? I'll tell you what I use duct tape for. And it depends on your collection. For me, sometimes I'll see an animal, I think he looks funny. I'm not sure if he looks funny. I'm not sure if he's acting right. So what I'll do is I'll take duct tape, and we have white and yellow and red, and I'll mark that tortoise. I'll put a big piece of tape on his shell. That's a signal to everybody else that works on the farm. My daughters work on the farm. My wife works on the farm. And there's 3 other people that work on the farm. We all have to work together. This helps us work together by identifying that animal that we have questions about. Because when you walk by, you think you're seeing, I think I saw 9 female galops. You think you saw 9. You didn't see the one that was really sick or not. Mark those tortoises. And it helps strengthen in your own mind, I've got to watch that animal. So put a marker on that animal. Use your white tape, your yellow tape, whatever organization you come up with is fine, but duct tape is great for that. Also, I tell you, I've used duct tape for emergencies. I had a galop that had a severe puncture wound in his leg, his front leg. Thing bled like crazy. What do you do? There's a lot of different stops there, which I should have here on the table. I should have those that blood stop. Quick stop, I think it's called, for like immediate coagulation of blood. Something I forgot to put here on the table. But the other thing you can do is you can take a towel, depending on the size of the animal, What I did was I wrapped him up with the duct tape around his leg and just prevented the profusion, the loss of blood from that animal. So duct tape, identify your animals, and in an emergency, duct tape can do everything. We know, right? Baby shampoo. What in the world are we going to use baby shampoo for? Baby shampoo is great. Baby shampoo, what you do is you mix this up, and then you can clean your tortoise's eyes out with this. Folks that are having those eye problems, I had said earlier, you're going to use this ointment from Chewy that you can get, but also you can use this No Tears baby shampoo. It doesn't hurt their eyes. It's an antibacterial. You can wash their eyes out with it, and it will kill that bacteria and that fungus that goes on. My mother uses this stuff. My mother has some problems with her eyes. She has some scarring from a long time ago when chlorine got in her eyes. She uses baby shampoo so that she actually washes her eyes out with the baby shampoo. Same thing you can do for your tortoises. We talked about the hydrogen peroxide for our wound care. The other thing that we're going to talk about for wound care, I don't know if I mentioned it, was Betadine. This is in the wound care section here, so you're going to want to be able to have Betadine on stock so you can clean those wounds out, and then again, you dress those wounds, you put your Silverdine, if you're going to use Silverdine, and your Betadine. Something else that you can use is crazy glue. If you have these minor injuries, sometimes it's easier to crazy glue these things in. Sometimes, rather than running to the vet and getting a stitch or getting, a stitch or two, it's quicker, it's easier. I glued a lot of iguanas together at minor wounds with crazy glue. Don't glue together giant wounds that don't belong together. Don't glue together wounds that are 2 and 3 days old. This is something that happens immediately. You can use this product to kind of seal that skin. If you don't know what you're doing, take your animal to the vet and let him treat that wound. Otherwise, you're going to screw it up. But if you know what you're doing and you've used it before, get that product in stock, crazy glue, just for that time that it's immediate that you're going to need maybe to use that product. So alcohol, we use alcohol for disinfecting some of our tools and everything. We also have an autoclave. I'll be making another video about the equipment we use here on the farm, the different centrifuges and microscopes and stuff like that. That's another video. Again, here it is, chlorhexidine. Okay, what I do with the chlorhexidine, you see I have that attached to the bottle because we're filling up these bottles with this chlorhexidine. We're using it as a disinfectant solution. We clean the tops of cages and everything. It's better than chlorine in that it doesn't leave a smell. It's hard to get out a smell out of a bin or something like that when you're using chlorine. So we use chlorhexidine and we make sure we have the proper dilution by pulling from the chlorhexidine bottle the proper amount of fluid, and then we put it in the bottle. So keep your mixtures to the right strength. Okay. Obviously, when you're cleaning up, you're going in between cages, use your gloves. This helps spread the germs and the bacteria and the fungus and everything else that's going around your farm. This helps prevent that. Change your gloves. Go from one cage to the next cage, or work with these animals or those animals, especially if you have animals that you're working with because they are sick or they're not feeling well. You want to use those gloves. Those gloves are important. Then one of the last products I think we have here is Epsom Salt. Epsom Salt. What do we use Epsom Salt for in tortoises? I tell you, this is a magic. This stuff works great. Epsom Salt in iguanas. You can soak iguanas in Epsom Salt. That's an antifungal. Helps them shed better and also removes that fungus. Sometimes we'll see funguses getting on the toes or on the skin of our iguanas, and you can soak them in Epsom Salt, and that helps get rid of the fungus. Also on your tortoises, Epsom salt is good for fungus. The other thing that Epsom salt is good for is tortoises, especially your giant tortoises, your Aldabras and your Galaps. Sometimes those animals get constipated. And what you do here is Epsom salt is a great laxative. We use it all the time in tortoises. If your tortoise is backed up, a lot of times they'll be running around, they'll look active, but they're not going. They're not going to the bathroom. Sometimes they're still eating and they're not producing stool. And a lot of times it happens because the temperature drops, it gets a little cooler, their digestion stalls. Think about Epsom salt. Soak them in a warm solution of Epsom salt and get those bowels moving. That's important. Something else I want to mention, folks, Epsom salt is great for swelling. Sometimes if you have a swollen limb or a leg or something like that, you soak in Epsom salt. It helps reduce swelling. After all is said and done, we want to isolate that animal. We want to make sure that we put it in a place that we can control its environment. We see what's happened. So this is the way we do it here when we want to do it. I just take a bin like this. You buy these things in Home Depot. We just modify the top by putting that screen in and just cut that plastic part out, zip tie that screen in, and then you have your light fixture that you can put on it, and that way you can take your animal in the house. You don't have to worry about things jumping in. You don't have to worry about things jumping out, and you can treat your animals there. Sometimes you don't want to use the substrate because you want to capture stool or whatever you have. Sometimes you're going to use a substrate. A lot of times I use hay. I use hay for a lot of different things. So people might use paper or something like that. But that's a good place. You keep your animals isolated, and you see what's coming in and you see what's going out. So I think that's it, folks. I hope you enjoyed that video. I have a few more videos coming out. Put your comments. Let me know what you think of the video. Appreciate everything, folks. And follow me. If you follow me on Instagram or you subscribe to me on YouTube, I really appreciate it. It helps me produce more videos like this, kind of help people out. Take care, everybody.